this one on its own.
Services, and I am part of the Brand Communities for Youth Coalition. They are actually the ones who help put this community night together, along with PTA, community members. And so our topic today is building a culture of empathy. This is a really tough subject, but this is happening in our schools. Bullying is a big thing, so we really wanted to bring this to you as parents, so that then you can spread the word and help your families, help your kids deal with these issues that are happening in the schools. So I'm going to go ahead and read a short bio. Our presenter is Teresa Rafe, along with Brandon Reyes, and they were students here at Ren High School. So I'm going to go ahead and read a short bio, and then I'm going to have her present. Okay, so Teresa Rafe spent her first years in education in San Bernardino, California. As a middle school avid instructor and coordinator, social skills teacher, and journalism advisor. During her years teaching social skills, she was able to significantly reduce the number of suspensions and referrals of her school's most at-risk students. As a result, she was the recipient of the San Bernardino Rotary's Duncan Webb Character Education Award. Teresa has presented before an audience of 500 as the keynote speaker at the Southern Region Student Wellness Conference. She is currently an elementary school teacher in a small river town in Northern California and is working on creating a culture of empathy and positivity on school campuses. Her personal experiences with bullying have inspired and motivated her to help students and educators strive for peace. So please give Teresa a round of applause.
Hello, everybody. I think I know over half the people in this crowd right now, which is comforting and a little nerve-wracking too. So it has been a while since I've been in this room on this stage, because I think the last time I was on this stage I was being awarded with the Class Clown Award. So that was a few years ago, almost 20 years ago. Wow. So I am here to talk to everybody about building a culture of empathy and tell you a story about Brandon, which I think a lot of you know. But over the years, a lot of people have asked me, what happened? What happened? And I don't think a whole lot of people know the whole story. So I'm going to give you kind of a rundown of what happened. This stuff. So this is me and Brandon when we were in high school. That was me with the bleached hair. In fact, I think my hairstylist is out there, the one who was responsible for the blonde. And that was Brandon. And this is Brandon when he was a little kid, and he was just a normal little kid like anybody else growing up in Southern California. He played sports, he loved animals, he was really funny. He always was playing jokes on his mom his whole life. He was the kind of kid that everybody wanted to be friends with. And Brandon and I became really good friends in high school, and we were totally punk rock, so we joined a band together called Labeled Widget, which means nothing at all. And we had a lot of fun. We're a garage band, so that was in my garage, and then there's a legitimate mohawk, probably with egg whites. So we had a lot of fun, but we were the punks, and there were a lot of different groups at our school. There was the punks, the jocks, the cheerleaders, the drama squad, like different groups, which we all know can happen in school. And what happened was Brandon decided that he didn't like the football players, so he was going to go harass them on the football field. Mind you, I didn't find any of this out until many years later. So that was how everything started. He went to football practice and started calling the football players names. And so one of the football players, and for the sake of today's presentation, we will call him John. That is not his name, but that's what we're going to call him. So John decided that he was really upset and that he was going to make Brandon's life miserable from that point on. And so that's what he did. So for the next year or two after that, he would harass Brandon. He would call Brandon the meanest names you can imagine. I don't need to say them. I think everybody can probably picture what he would call Brandon. He would threaten Brandon, tell Brandon he was going to beat him up. Anything you can imagine. Brandon was afraid. Brandon's mom was afraid. Nobody really knew what to do, but we knew that it was escalating and we knew that something was going to happen. So our band was playing at Scottish Games Day. Back in the day when we had Scottish Games Day, which I guess they don't anymore. I think this was the last one. And this was the day of the incident. And we were performing, and somebody introduced us, Brandon's uncle. He wasn't older than us, he was actually our age. He was part of the punk squad. So he came out and he introduced us and he said, "This is Labeled Widget, and before they start, I just want to say one thing, and that's jocks suck." And so you could kind of feel the energy in the crowd immediately shift. And we played, and once we got done playing, a big fight broke out. And so Brandon saw, we were still on stage kind of cleaning things up, and Brandon saw that his really good friend was in the middle of the mosh pit getting beaten up really badly. And so Brandon, who was somebody who always advocated for unity and peace and nonviolence, Brandon jumped in to pull his friend out of the middle. And when he did that, John, the boy who had been bullying him, decided that would be his golden opportunity to hurt Brandon. So he punched Brandon one time in the head, and that was it. That was all that happened. One time he punched Brandon. He punched him really hard, and he punched him in the temple. So at the time, I didn't really think much of it. I thought it was just a fight, because fights happen all the time. Nobody really gets hurt. So the crowd kind of broke up, and I had to go work at Goodwin's Deli Bakery that day. So Brandon was saying to me, "Teresa," he seemed fine at the time, "Teresa," and he was pulling the skin on his neck, and he kept saying, my neck hurts, my brain hurts, my neck hurts. I said, "Well, are you okay?" And he said, "I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay." I said, "Okay, well, I have to go to work." So I left and I went to work, and I came home that night. Actually, it's funny, I've never even shared this. I remember I was eating a chicken nugget Happy Meal from McDonald's. But, so I got a phone call on the phone while I was eating my chicken nuggets. And Brian called me and he said, "Teresa, did you hear what happened to Brandon?" And I said, "No, what are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, Brandon is in the hospital right now, and he's probably not going to make it through the night." And I said, "What are you talking about?" Brandon was hemorrhaging internally, and he wasn't expected to survive the first night, but he did survive the first night, and he's here tonight, so let's give him a round of applause. There's the smile. So this is Brandon now. And he's saying yes, and he's saying hi to you right now. This means yes. So, Brandon lives in Victorville now, and he enjoys the sun, but we're here today to talk to you about building a culture of empathy. And so, empathy defined, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, and we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I'm going to spare you all the Sesame Street video that I was going to play, but I will just explain to you what empathy is for those of you who don't know. Empathy is having the ability to have the feelings of another without actually experiencing that yourself. So if I can watch my friend cry, then I can feel her pain because I'm having empathy for her. See, you guys are lucky. It's not going to play. Don't worry. Okay. So right now I'm just going to take a minute, and I don't have a wireless mic, so maybe you guys all have to come down there. I'm going to walk around it. I'm going to figure out a way. I'm going to give you a minute to talk with the people next to you. Why is empathy important? So talk about it right now, and then I want people to be ready to come talk about it in the microphones. So go. Talk about it. Why is empathy important? At work, home, school, or in social settings? Okay. Thank you. I like having this microphone. I feel powerful. Okay. So, why is empathy important? Mrs. Schoner, thank you for volunteering.
I'm here so I can see. Hi, Brandon. Love you. You know, if we can feel how other people feel, if we can sense that, maybe we'll just be nicer. It's all about kindness, and I wish that was everywhere. I think people need to think about it, put some effort into it, and just be kind.
He's telling you he loves you right
I know, I love you too. I got such a good hug from Brandon. So yeah,
Thank you.
be nice to one another.
Be kind to one another, as Ellen DeGeneres said. Thank you. So I'm going to go over some reasons of why, research-based reasons of why empathy is important in everyday situations. So it reduces prejudice and racism. It promotes healthy marriage. I think I don't need to explain that. It reduces bullying. So there's this program called Roots of Empathy in Canada, and what they did was they brought a baby in to the classroom, into a kindergarten classroom, and the baby comes in once a week, and the kids sit around and they evaluate the facial expressions of the baby and the mannerisms of the baby, and they discuss why she is feeling the way that she's feeling. And what they got from that was that you can actually teach empathy. It's not something, it is innate in some of us, but in some people, you have to actually teach it. So it's just like reading a book, it's just like doing math. You have to teach kids empathy at a very young age. And so what they realized with this Roots of Empathy program was that in the schools that participated, they had a significantly lower amount of bullying. And so when there's less bullying, more learning happens, and there's less fighting, and of course the energy on the campus is much more positive. It encourages heroic acts. They found that during the Holocaust, that the people who were most likely to go and rescue the Jews from the camps were actually people who had some sort of empathy education as young children. So it actually inspires us to go out and be heroes. It fights inequality. So what they found also in one of the studies was that if you at some point were low socioeconomic status, you were more likely to go volunteer at a homeless shelter. And then on the other side is if somebody they found that has a lot of money actually has a significantly, and I'm not saying everybody, but in the studies that they found that people who have a really high socioeconomic status actually have significantly less empathy. And one of the studies that they did, I guess they watched people on the freeway, and they found that the people who drove luxury vehicles were more likely to cut you off. And I know, that's really not a surprise. No offense if you drive a luxury vehicle, but they're more likely to cut you off, and they also are less likely to stop for pedestrians. So, it fosters a healthy work environment. They found that people who have empathetic bosses, they actually have a better attendance rate, so people call in sick less often if you have kind of an empathetic culture at your work. And it improves overall health care. So I can personally attest to this. I guess they found that doctors who show really high rates of empathy and who take a lot of courses in empathy, actually have healthier patients. And for 3 years, I was feeling really unwell. I was sick and going to the doctor and telling my doctor, I just don't feel right. Things are not right. I'm really stressed out all the time. My body doesn't feel right, and I was having all of these kind of like weird symptoms going on, and the doctor kind of rolled her eyes at me and kind of asserted that teaching isn't that stressful, which, if any of you teach, you know that's not true. But, so she just kind of brushed me off, and then I moved to Northern California and I got a new doctor, and she sat down with me and she talked with me for a half hour. She made eye contact, and I could tell she was really genuinely interested in my health. And at the end of my appointment, I said, Guy, I've never had a doctor who really talks to me and asks me questions like this. It's like you really care. She said, well, that's my job. I'm your doctor. I'm supposed to really care about you. And so I didn't really think much of it, and I was like, okay, well, she's going to get to the bottom of this situation. And so I went home, and then the next day I got a phone call from my doctor, and they said, you need to come in for a biopsy. And I said, okay, and it ended up I had cancer. And I had a doctor who wasn't listening to me for 3 years and wasn't having empathy for me. And I had cancer and didn't know it. So I don't anymore, and now I'm fine. But it's just interesting that doctors who are very empathetic have healthier patients. So now we talked about why it's important, and so now we're going to talk about ways to increase. There are really simple things that we can do to increase empathy. Every one of us can do this. You can listen to uplifting stories. You can watch movies or read stories with your kids and make you feel good. You can pray. You can meditate. You can practice yoga. You guys are really lucky. You live in a really beautiful place. You can visit nature. You can perform acts of service, so you can go volunteer places. I told my students, you can even pick up trash. It'll make you feel good. Travel to needy areas. You can read literature that humanizes minority groups. And you can think about suffering. And it's not that we want to think about suffering, but suffering is part of living. So what they found at UC Berkeley is they did a study, and they had people think about suffering. And what they found was that it activates the vagus nerve in our brain. And so it kind of, quite literally, when we have more empathy, and the vagus nerve is related to compassion and empathy. And so when we are more empathetic, we're actually more intelligent. So here are some ideas that we can implement at home and at school. So at home, I put school in here because I feel like there are educators in the room, and I think that this is an important thing that educators should be aware of. So at home, you can talk about empathy. You can teach listening skills. And I'm sure that most of you who are here tonight do this already, which is why you're here, but it still is, maybe you can expand on it. You can talk about empathy, teach listening skills, cultivate compassion and curiosity, encourage genuine perspective taking. I have a friend who never gets mad. It almost irritates me that she never gets mad. And so, but every time I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated right now, and I'll come and talk to her about my problems, and she just will always calm me down and say, now, put yourself in their shoes. And she's always taking the perspective of somebody else, and she's always willing to be forgiving, and I think that's a really important thing that not enough of us do. And so it's a really important skill that we should be teaching our kids. And we should be doing ourselves, actually. And then do community service as a family. Some of the most empathetic kids I know are in the audience tonight, my nieces and nephews. And they, as a family, will go do things for the community. They will... You feed the homeless? Is that what you did? Yeah? Yeah, sorry, now I'm embarrassing them. But it's true. They're good kids. And then at school, I think this is the most important thing that all schools should do. We have very, very little bullying at my school. I teach in the middle of the forest. There's only 85 students. There's almost no bullying at all. And so we do a lot of this stuff. We have adopted restorative justice practices, and that will be a whole other presentation that we could go into. But basically what it is we meet and we sit in a circle once a week and we talk about what's going on. And we just talk to each other and we connect and we relate to one another. And we talk about problems that are happening at the school. We talk about problems that are happening in our classroom. And I really see a big difference in the way the kids interact with one another as a result. Also, assemblies, integrated classroom lessons, written commitments, that's a really big one. And then a wall of empathy, something in the hallway that reminds people that this school is, we are living a culture of empathy at this school. And I think that that is something that really needs to happen at all of our schools. So, the most important thing that I want everybody to leave here knowing is that empathy can be taught. It's not something that we just have to expect that people are going to know. We have to be the people who are living and breathing empathy and setting a good example so that our kids can also set a good example with their peers. And so what I want everybody to do right now, because I think this is something really simple, is I want you to think of the things that we learned here and here. Oh geez, oh geez. And here. Think about just one thing that you're not already doing, because I really do think that a lot of you are probably doing most of these things. But if you can think of one thing that you're not already doing, and you're going to leave here today, and you're going to think about how can I nurture a culture of empathy at my house, or at my work, or in my classroom. Something new. So I just want to give you a minute to just kind of let that sit. And if you want to share, feel free. Some people are microphone shy. I mean, yeah. Oh, we do have a wireless mic. Speak off. Do you want to do it? I will, yeah. Or if you want to. All right, so somebody has to be ready to share, because I'm getting off the stage. And we're going to get a minute to talk to Brandon, too. All right. Oh, yeah.
If we do empathy, then if another person that was nice, be nice to another one, then it will be nice to another one, every single time.
It's contagious.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Right. I like that. Thank you.
Teresa, I'm interested in the wall of empathy. Can you give me an idea of what that would look like in a school?
I think, whoa, hot mic. I think you could celebrate a certain student who embodies empathy, put their picture on the wall, a definition of empathy, words that are related to empathy. Also, that Roots of Empathy program is really fantastic, but it's probably pricey. But I think they do walls of empathy. So just things, what does empathy look like? And how can we, as a school, be living in an empathetic nature? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But I like the idea of celebrating a student who really embodies them. I think that that will give other kids something to look up to. Okay, other ideas? Yeah? Oh, you have, okay. Is your hand up? Okay.
Partially, whoa, holy smokes. Partially to answer that question, Ukaipa High School has an assembly that talks about some of these things, and as part of that, they have a blacklight room, and the students in the light of day are encouraged to kind of write some of the things that's going on inside of them with a highlighter on a white piece of paper or something that nobody can see as they're writing it, and then those are handed and distributed, and then post in a completely blacklit room. And I mean, it's really kids' deepest, darkest secrets. And what ends up showing up out of that is that they're not alone, and that there's, they're surrounded by other people who are broken too.
Thank you, that's a great idea. Are there any other people who want to share anything about what they can leave here today doing something different, something new? I like to hear from the kids. Oh, we have a hand today. What can you do? And what's your name? I should be getting names. What's your name? Okay.
As a parent, I feel like we teach our kids how to use their words and use their voice, but the listening skills and kind of pulling the big picture from conversations is something that
And getting a perspective of two people. Good. Anybody else? Chris. I like to call my family out. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to share right now. Okay, a conversation over coffee. I'm going to share a story with you because I did a presentation a couple years ago, and I thought I spent too many years being mad at John, the guy who hurt him. And I said to myself, if I am doing a presentation all about empathy and all about perspective taking, I have to hear the other side of the story. And so I messaged him on Facebook, and I said, I'm doing a presentation, and I want to know your side of the story. And within 5 minutes, he messaged me back. I would love to meet you for coffee. Let's do it. And so we met, and he told me, first of all, I had no idea that Brandon actually initiated the rivalry. I had no idea that Brandon went to football practice and was kind of poking at them. I didn't know that. But Brandon, when I asked him about it, he said, yes, I did that. So he totally validated that. Also, he told me that he feels guilty every single day. And there is not a single day that goes by that he doesn't think about Brandon, that he goes on his Facebook every day to check up on Brandon. And I said, would you be willing to come and speak with me? Come and be on stage with me and talk about it. He said, let me think about it. And he thought about it for a while, and he finally got back to me and he said, no, I can't, because I have 2 kids, and I'm their hero. And I can't let them know what I did. And so, really nobody won out of any of this. And I think it's such a valuable lesson. We got to go to MPH today and talk to all the kids at MPH, and it was a really fantastic experience, I think, for both Brandon and myself, because it's such an important message. And yeah, so what Brandon doesn't know, there's a surprise. And what you guys don't know is that you are going to be singing with me in a second. So there was also some other studies done that said that you want to increase your level of empathy, join a band. Because I don't know if you know any musicians, but we all tend to be very sappy, sensitive, empathetic people. So they said that playing music together actually can increase your level of empathy. And another study also found that when people sing together, their heart beats together. So we are going to play Brandon a song right now because I think that we owe it to him. So I think it's a song that everybody knows, and I need my microphone. Okay, so how this is going to work, can you see those lyrics? No? All right. Yeah, it does look kind of far away. Do you guys know the song "What a Wonderful World"? Or "It's a Wonderful World"? Okay, well that's what we're singing. I'll do my best to sing it loud and clear, though. So if you can see the lyrics, I'm gonna sing this. Yeah, that's better. So I'm gonna sing this, and you are gonna sing what's bolded in the middle. Can I see a show of hands who is committing to singing with me right now? Okay, cool. Thanks. Makeshift. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. This is where you guys are coming in. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, bright blessed day, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Colors of rainbows so created the sky are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry and watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, you tonight, but at the middle school, and by the way, thank you for coming out. I want to thank, first of all, whoever wrote that really cool bio about me that went on all the flyers. That made me look cool. And then I want to thank Amy and Jacqueline for organizing this and coordinating this, because this is really important. And I know that you guys worked really, really hard making this all come together. And Doris, come up here. Yeah, come up here. This is Brandon's mom, and she is the most amazing woman. This is Doris. So at the middle school, we did a little Q&A. I'm totally open to that. Brandon, do you want to do a Q&A again, like in the middle school? Okay, he says yes, he wants to answer questions. So he has the ability to answer yes and no, and if a question is asked that he can't really answer that way, Doris is going to help. Come back up. So, okay, could we maybe put the lights? Yeah, that's better. And then you can turn that off. All right, so is there any questions? Anything you want to ask Brandon or his mom? Yeah.
Given the person that did this to you?
That's a yes.
He says yes. He forgives them. I'm just going to sit here actually, or actually, I'll come down. I forget it's wireless. Okay. Yeah.
If Brandon basically actually wanted to rate of 1 to 10 how much it hurt.
Oh, he wants to know, did it hurt pretty bad? Any other questions? Don't be shy. The middle schoolers were not shy, so I expect you guys to be asking questions. Or the little kids.
Can Brandon feel anything?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, he can feel things, yes. He's gonna give a thumbs up, Brandon. Yeah, he knows, Brandon's all there. He knows everything going on. In fact, his favorite pastime is to flirt with women. Waitresses. He pretends like he can't control things. He's touching them.
What's your favorite movie?
That's a good question.
Oh, his favorite movie is Joe Dirt.
What was Brandon's favorite song in high school?
His favorite song in high school, if I had to guess, Brandon, you can say yes or no, would it be anything by Screeching Weasel? Yeah. He loves Screeching Weasel. Any other? That was a good one. 'Cause he's a music fan, so. Any others? You want to shout it? You can shout it out. You want to? You want the microphone. All right, hold on. I didn't put my Fitbit on. I forget how many steps right now.
Why did did you hate football? The football team.
That's a good question. Did you hate everybody in the football team or just some? Everyone? Just some? He says he didn't hate the whole football team, just some of the players. But he likes football. Yes.
And he was waving to the middle schoolers today. Okay. Hi. Oh my gosh. How are you?
Do you regret standing up to those who bullied you?
So can you say that again?
Do you regret standing up to those who bullied you?
No. Is that no?
I think that's a no.
That's a no.
He's messing with his chair.
He doesn't regret standing up to them, but he said, one of the students today asked
He doesn't regret it.
if he regretted going to the football practice. Right? One of the students asked that today?
Yeah, one of
And
the
he
boys
said,
asked him that.
yeah, and he said he regretted going to the football practice that day. Any other questions? Yeah.
Your friend Joy Nowak says hi, and she loves you.
He waves hi back.
Could you play any other instruments besides the guitar in high school?
Did he play any other instrument? No,
Yeah.
just the
No.
guitar, the acoustic electric.
Do you like being on stage? Yeah, when I was a keynote speaker, there's 500 people. And I was walking around like this, and then I, for some reason, ended up having 2 microphones in my hand, and I didn't know what to do, and I said, okay, Brandon, and I just put one of the microphones in Brandon's lap. And I'm talking, and it's totally serious, and then the whole room starts cracking up. I'm like, what are they laughing at? And I turn around, and Brandon has a microphone that he was supposed to be safely keeping in his lap. And he had his head tilted back like this, and he was lip syncing for the whole audience. So, yes, he has always on the stage and always will.
Does Brandon still listen to punk rock music?
That's a great question. Of course he does.
What's his favorite food?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you want to answer that? It's the favorite food. What's his favorite food?
Oh, he likes Chipotle's and Italian.
Chipotle and Italian food. Is he still drinking strawberry shakes all the time?
I limit him.
Oh, okay. He used to be drinking strawberry shakes.
Yeah, we're all getting
Any other questions? Okay, we'll take one last question and then we will call it a night. All right.
What happened to the person that bullied him?
So he is a firefighter now, and he spends his time saving people's lives. Yeah. He turned out to be, from my interpretation, he turned out to be really nice. All right. Well, I think that is all. Thank you, everybody. Feel free to stay and chat with Brandon if you want. If we can get him, you might have to come up on stage, actually. It took a little while to get up. But thank you very much. Have a good night. No, I know.
We're gonna